Nothing enrages me faster than like technology, like needlessly replacing something that was already functional. I hate it. And I know that me like having that as the hill I'm willing to die on is not going to make it go away.
When it comes to kids and screen time, it's easy to get trapped in binary thinking. But screens can't be all good or all bad, can they?
The opposite of a binary take, like a very, fear-based take, is being neutral and being able to recognize that, okay, this is the reality we're in, and I don't necessarily like it, but like this is the reality we're in.
Ash Brandin is a teacher, gamer, and author of Power On, Managing Screen Time to Benefit the Whole Family. They've helped families just like yours to set loving boundaries around kids and screens that respects the technology while centering the needs of our children.
Like, individuals are not the reason we're in this place, so it feels a little unfair to then put the burden of that further on the individual. It can put a lot of guilt on caregivers that they can't achieve this on their own. But our society isn't really making it possible to achieve that.
My name is Randy Rubenstein, and welcome to the Mastermind Parenting Podcast. At Mastermind Parenting, we're on a mission to support strong-willed kids and the families that love them. Well, hi everyone. I am here with Ash Brandin, and we are talking about all things screens, technology, our kids and screens, our teenagers on screens, the conversation that is sort of the bane of many of our existences. And thank God for you, for people like you who teach us how we're supposed to do to navigate this tricky topic. So thank you so much.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me. I'm glad to be here.
Okay. Your book, Power On. First, I love the name, Power On, managing screen time to benefit the whole family. Mm-hmm. How did you come up? I'm naming something right now. And so like finding just the right name. How did you find that name?
I can't remember what I originally had said. It was something extremely similar. And my agent like tweaked it just the tiniest bit to end up with Power On. The subtitle was me. But yeah, I can't remember what I originally thought. And I think it was like too close to something that already existed or something. And then my agent suggested that one. Yeah, it stuck.
It's so good. And this book is so good. And I have to tell you that it's so funny because in my basics program, I also teach a NICE framework.
What? No way.
Is that unbelievable?
Funny.
Is that unbelievable?
That's awesome. Yeah. What is yours for?
So people come in, and when they take my initial program, it's a 12-week program, and we call it Basics Boot Camp. And they're just basically they're learning the Mastermind Parenting method of handling strong-willed kids, for supporting strong-willed kids. Just those kids that seem like they just don't want to cooperate. But the truth is that we're quite often solving the wrong problem. We're thinking that they're the problem when that's just not the case. And so I take people through this framework, and we get real good at identifying what is the actual problem that we're solving.
And it's nice overlap.
Yeah, there's a lot of nice overlap. That's really the main reason I wanted to talk to you today. I was telling you that my coworker, Lindsay, she started listening to your book, and she just kept sending me messages saying, Mastermind aligned, like we love them. You have to talk to them on the podcast. This is the thing we've been looking for. And I was like, okay. And, my kids are older, so I'm not in the fire in the same way, but I am in the fire with all of my clients and all of the moms and dads who are struggling with how long do we have to wait for Silicon Valley to make life a little easier on us parents?
Yeah.
I know. But in the meantime, we need people like you that help us to navigate. And I want to talk about, the thing I liked about your book so much is it's rooted in realism, right? Like So, look, I love the work of Jonathan Haidt, and there's many things that I completely agree with.
Yep.
However, however, I'm like, yes, play-based childhood. Yes, yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah.
And like, how many people are living their lives in the way he prescribes?
Uh huh. Thank you. Perfect. Yes. I mean, what you said is perfectly said. Like, I would love. I've said this many times, but I'd love to be able to unring the bell of technological ubiquity. Like, people assume that because I am not like more fear based or like anti screen, that I must be like pro screen. And I'm like, no, the opposite of like a binary take. I mean, not to make this too meta, is a non binary take, right? Which is like, which the opposite of a binary take, like a very, fear based take, is being neutral and being able to recognize that, okay, this is the reality we're in. And I don't necessarily like it, but like this is the reality we're in. And I joke that there's this like meme from The Simpsons of it says like old man yells at cloud, and it's like his dad like yelling at a cloud. And I say nothing turns me into that faster than like when I go to park my car and there's no more like kiosks to put in my license plate number, and now it's like scan this QR code and download an app and I'm like, no, nothing enrages me faster than like technology like needlessly replacing something that was already functional. I hate it. And I know that me like having that as the hill I'm willing to die on is not going to make it go away, right? And so I think there's sort of a nostalgia built into that way of viewing the world, that we're kind of pining for this reality that just doesn't exist anymore. And I think it is in many ways a symptom of an overly individualistic world in America that got us here, right? Like, we didn't care enough for parents to have paid parental leave. We didn't care enough for young families to have affordable or accessible or like free universal childcare. We didn't care enough about the collective to put in these foundational systemic like bumpers that
Mhm.
would make it easier to have one caregiver at home, or being able to say, you're going to go play outside, or I'm going to be able to completely turn off my work brain because I'm spending more time at home. Like, those things are built into the framework. And so then when we say, like, oh, we'll just do more as an individual to try to attain that, like, individuals are not the reason we're in this place. So it feels a
Mhm.
little unfair to then put the burden of that further on the individual. Because as you
Mhm.
said, like, most families are not in a position where they can do this. And the families that are really privileged. I don't mean that like derisively. I'm one of those families technically. But, a family living in an apartment building in an urban environment, they can't just be like, go outside. Right? A family who is facing disability or has a neurodivergent child, or families of color, they can't just send their kids outdoors unattended. We don't live in a world where that's systemically possible. So I think it's a very simple sounding idea that then becomes like really, it can put a lot of guilt on caregivers that they can't achieve this on their own. But our society isn't really making it possible to achieve that.
Right. Even in the privileged population, it's like we set the tone, the parents set the tone. And I think the conversation that most people, everyone wants to talk about our kids being addicted to screens and they're not moving their bodies and they're not playing outside. But I can't tell you how many moms come clean when they start working with me and they're a part of my groups and they see that it's like, oh, we're doing that here. It's like radical truth telling. And we're talking about what really is happening behind the scenes. And, so people get honest and they're on their phones the whole time. Like it never occurred to so many parents when I say, listen, like even if you have your life is set up where from the time your kid comes home from school, you're not at work, you're home with them, put your phone, if you don't want them to be on devices, put your phone in a drawer, put it away. Don't be on it. Like, just don't be on your screen. When, when you're with them, just be with them. And put it away if it's too hard to scroll. Like, I understand if you get like a phone call or whatever, but if it's like, somebody like it's an emergent situation or whatever it is. But if it's like, I'm with my kids, we're going to go to the park or we're hanging out at home or whatever. And if you're just sitting there scrolling on social media, and then you don't want them to go and scroll on their iPad or scrolling on whatever, I'm like, then just model the thing that you're expecting from them. And it's like, it never occurred to anyone to check in on their own screen habits. I see it over and over and over again. And look, the way we talk about it is, I'll say, back in the day, it never occurred to me that maybe I shouldn't just be like shooting the shit with my friend when I'm driving with my kids. Like, when I'm driving with my kids, I'll have, like, that's a great time to talk to them.
Yeah.
Right? It's a great time to just listen to music together.
Yeah.
And like, it was like when I was a young mom, I was just like chatting it up with my friends. And then all of a sudden one day I realized it's kind of rude. Like, if really, it's just it's kind of rude. So I started there, and I was like, when I'm in the car, I'm not chit chatting on the phone with friends when I'm hanging out with my kids, or I'm going to be with the people I'm with, right?
Sure.
And then that turned into, well, if I don't want them to come straight home from school and just want to go, back in the day, it was like they wanted to go on Webkins or they wanted to play
Mm.
Wii,
Oh,
like the
yeah.
things that.
Hmm.
And so if I don't want them to just rush into those things right away, then I'm going to be available. Just like
Mm.
hanging out in the same room, even if I'm like doing something else, I'm just there. The minute I find I get on a screen, then they want to get on a screen too. So if I don't want them on a screen, I'm just going to do that. And I don't think, I think it's like most adults are talking about how worried they are about their kids being on screens too much, but they're not necessarily evaluating their own screen usage. I
Yeah.
don't
What
know.
I
What are
think
your
is
thoughts about that?
Well, there's a lot in there. What I think is really interesting is what I think is sort of silently implied, but people aren't always necessarily aware of, is that when they say something like that they're worried about their kids' screen usage, but not necessarily about their own, that I think implies that the the child's screen usage is being seen as basically leisure based,
Mm.
and an adult screen usage is being seen as non-leisure based. And both of those are very broad blanket statements, neither of which is entirely true. But it, a lot of, I think, our difficulty with treating technology with a moral neutrality, which is something I advocate a lot for, is that we are very quick to see screen based leisure as having validity like other forms of leisure. So, if my kid wanted to go play soccer at the soccer field, we would probably be like, oh, yeah, that's great. They're getting outside, they're playing with people. But if they then came home because it was dark and they then hopped onto FIFA soccer with those same kids, we would not think of that as being like as good, big air quotes here, as good a leisure activity. But leisure, we don't need to be like kind of moralizing different forms of leisure with this like productivity hierarchy, right? Like leisure is valuable. And I think we're also naming, which is true, that a lot of the time when an adult is using their phone, most of the time, it isn't for leisure. And I sometimes think about, going to the park, as you mentioned. If it were 30 years ago and a parent were sitting on the park bench while their kid was playing, and that adult were going through the mail and clipping coupons and writing down the grocery list, I don't think people would have really batted an eye at that. But now, if that same adult is sitting on a bench and they are opening up their grocery app and they are clipping digital coupons and they're making a pickup order so that they can go pick up groceries and spend more quality time with their children, we are, I think, quicker to go like, oh, there's that parent just on their phone all the time. There is an incredible amount of domestic and invisible labor that lives on phones. And so sometimes if I do want to prioritize the time in which I am with my child, like physically, that also may mean that I am having to use the times in which they may be otherwise occupied to attend to the needs of my household. And a lot of those needs they can get done on a device. So the modeling that you speak of, one of the aspects of modeling I think is really, really helpful is to actually name what you're doing because kids rightfully, they see us on a device and they assume it's leisure because it is leisure for them, right? They're not yet managing a household and they shouldn't be. But so if they see us pick up a device, they may associate it with leisure and also with like the sort of off limits nature that it is for them. But if I pick up my phone and I'm like, hey, you just grabbed the last Gatorade from the fridge. I am putting Gatorade on our grocery list. Otherwise, I'm going to forget. Then I'm going to set my phone down and go back to playing with you. I mean, that's very different than like I'm just sort of mysteriously picking it up and looking like I'm preferring it over them. So that modeling might just be like kind of the scripting of what we're doing and why.
That's so good. Yeah, no, it's so good just to even because I think we all do assume. I think there is
Mm-hmm.
such a yeah, like there's this morality that's built in that if you see people on their phone, it's I mean, I don't know. I remember seeing a thing with Simon Sinek. Do you know that guy who
I know the
has the
name.
yeah, like he has a really famous TED talk and he was talking about how like if you go into a business meeting and they've done studies and if you put your phone even on the conference table, even face down, that sends the people a message that you're not fully present because if somebody wants to, so I do think there's been a lot of morality wrapped up in the phone, but I think you bring up such a simple concept. It's communication. It's
Yep.
you're hanging out with your kid and you're like, "Oh, I got to do the grocery list real quick. Wait, okay, I know we're out of Gatorade. I'm just going to do this real quick. Oh, hang on.
Right.
Let me just put this grocery order in. Just tell them. Just tell them
Yeah,
what
just
you're
tell them.
working on." Yeah.
Or like sometimes I've gotten like a text from, a, a friend of my child's adult, right? And I'm like, oh, your friend's mom just texted me. I'm going to text her back because we're trying to, you asked to play with them. We're figuring out our schedules. Then I'll go back to that, right? Just sort of naming. And also because otherwise a lot of that labor is like further invisible to our kids. So even thinking about sort of all of the skills embedded within that of like the labor, executive functioning, all of that kind of thing, it is good for them to see that. And there are lots of kind of accommodations that live in our phones, like reminders and lists. And if we're utilizing those, I think that's
Oh,
also important to
alerts.
name, right? Of
I love
like,
alerts.
there's been times in the car where I am like remotely telling Siri, like, put this on my reminders for tomorrow.
Yeah.
And it, so that I don't forget, I'm sort of modeling how I'm using that technology to accommodate myself in that moment. And doing it in a way that's sort of transparent. And I have to just say that anecdote about the boardroom that can only be said by a non-default parent.
Mhm.
Can you
Mhm.
imagine
Mm-mm.
like the if a default parent or someone that was like read as a woman came in there and had her phone on the thing because her kid had a 99-degree fever this morning and now she's waiting for the call for school and all these men are sitting there thinking that she's not committed to the company, like, whew, there's just a lot to unpack in there.
So it's so true. And the other thing I was thinking, and I know I've seen, I want to even say I remember my husband doing this because he loves to, he's a real estate guy. And so he'll do it to me. We'll be driving around and he'll say, will you? um, will you grab my phone and, send me an email or do a thing and say that the lights are out at 4204,
Mm. Right.
like, and so it's work stuff. And he's done that with our kids too. And so I'm thinking, how about if your kids are old enough and they love screens and you're driving and you're like, hey, will you play assistant for a little bit? While we're driving, let's figure, will you jot down this grocery list, or will you hold
Yeah.
the phone up so that, I can tell Siri, whatever, whatever. Like, you can also include your kid and use them, do it together, and
Yeah.
give them some purpose, which kids love that kind of stuff.
Yeah, and if you have things in place that you're trying to do for yourself, like this is true for me, of, times that you're trying to have it away, or for me, like on the weekend, I call it my Sabbath setting for the phone, that I have it turn, it like turns itself to a very different setting on the weekend. I see far fewer apps. It's kind of this reminder to myself that like that stuff can generally wait. Um, and that's also things to name and to just make clear of like, oh, this is a way that I try to make it easier to be present and remind myself that, all the work will wait and my job's to be here with you, because, eventually our kids are going to have these things, right? Kind of going back to what we were talking about before. We're not going to send our kids into a world where we can really unring that bell, right? We're not going to send them into a world where it's even possible, let alone practical, to kind of exist without a smartphone. Like anymore, they're basically a utility, right? Like there are many parts of life that are kind of inaccessible without them. I don't like that, but it's kind of the reality.
Well, let me tell you, my 19-year-old son, who's a sophomore in college right now, ever since the summer, he put himself on a flip phone experiment. We're calling it the flip phone experiment, because he had been having a hard time for the last several years. It's TikTok, and he would uninstall it, he would reinstall it, he would uninstall it. But then he found himself just going to Instagram, and he's like, so I'm just using Instagram Reels and it's not even as good as TikTok. And I'm like, no, TikTok. I mean, I think TikTok has the best audience. Like, I think those people, the comments on TikTok, I think those people, I think they are so hilarious. My daughter's like, yeah, no, it's all about, like, I was like, why do people on TikTok have the best senses of humor? Like, the vibe on there is so good. He's like, right. So now I'm just on Instagram, which is not even as good a version, but I'm still doing the same thing. And so he decided, I'm just going to go sans smartphone and go to a flip phone. So he's been using a flip phone. And it's been a really interesting experiment. But I will tell you, it was, well, he used his phone for Apple Maps or Google Maps. Like, how do
Uh-huh.
you get,
Right.
so how is he going to get places in his car? He's used, there's
Yes.
no maps program. He didn't have a built-in navigation in the
Right.
car.
Right. So
Yeah.
many things. Your digital
Spotify.
wallet,
I
your
mean,
ID.
yes, Spotify. He was like, how do I listen to my music? He had to buy this little extra device thing. It was like he kept having to buy all these different devices
Yep.
because it was so much less convenient. And it's been a really interesting, I mean, we take it for granted, but smartphones are super efficient.
Right. Well, and that's kind of baked into the design too. Like I had a thread, like the Instagram, Twitter equivalent, go unbelievably viral because pretty frequently on there, I will see people saying like, we need to bring back iPods. And I'm like, iPods exist. MP3 players cost like $35.
Hmm.
The hardware is not the problem. The infrastructure is the problem.
Yep.
Like, good luck trying to own physical media. And by physical, I mean like just anything you can own. Like I know an MP3 is not physical, but you get what I mean. And people would completely kind of miss the point and be like, you can get an external drive and you can get CDs from the secondhand store, from the library, and you can rip them and then you just transfer the files. I'm like, you are missing my point. Because my point is what you're talking about of like, it has to be accessible. It has to be simple. It has to be sustainable. And thinking about, my own child, like a lot of kids consume media differently than we did, right? The music my kid wants to listen to, a lot of it is like things that are not even possible to own, right? It's like things that might be in YouTube videos or it's like background music, and there's not a CD of that, right? And even if there is, it's like, yeah, it's just not practical in the same way. And I'm like, well, what am I supposed to do? Teach my kid how to like pirate music and download this and use 5 attachments to get it onto this piece of physical hardware for what? Right. It just feels
Right.
like, again, we're trying to recreate this sort of nostalgia, the thing we have nostalgia for, but it's just not the same world. And like your son was experiencing, I was fascinated to hear how that was going for him, because yeah, there's a lot you just can't access in the
Yeah.
world anymore. We
Yep.
were somewhere where they had QR codes for menus, which again,
Yes.
don't love, really don't love it. I understood it
Right.
during COVID, but now I'm like, please just give me a paper menu.
Right.
And we were somewhere where they had a QR code for the menu, and I had left we were at a hotel. I'd left my phone in the room, and I was like, I don't have a phone. And they were like, we don't have a paper copy. Like they just did not have another option. And that's a very small example, but it's like, okay, going to the airport and
Yes. Going
boarding
to the airport.
passes,
Yes.
IDs.
Yes.
And a lot of like teen parents, it's like, okay, well, I don't want to give my kid a bunch of cash. I don't want to give my kid a credit card because they could lose it. Okay, that's kind of the purpose of digital wallets. I can give my kid a digital wallet with a set spending limit. I can set them up with a card that texts me if they try to spend more than a certain amount of dollars. They can have their bus pass on there. They can have their ID on there. Some apartment buildings use phones as an access to the building, right? So that you're not losing a physical key. Some jobs have you clock in with your smartphone. So, seeking that like past version, it's just not the world that we live in anymore. It's just,
It's such a good
yeah.
point. He, I'm going to have him on the podcast because I said to him, I want us to break down this experiment because I'm not even sure that it has accomplished what he was hoping it would accomplish.
That's
It's very,
interesting.
yeah, he was saying to me, we were kind of breaking it down recently, and because he still has an iPad, because he does a lot of his work on it, right? And so, and he takes it to class and whatever. So he still has an iPad. Well, since he has an iPad, he's like, okay, so I kept Instagram on the iPad because it's not with me all the time. It felt like, okay, I'd have to be actually at home, whatever. He goes, but then I keep finding myself like the last few mornings, I wasn't feeling great. I woke up and I rotted on Instagram in the bed.
Uh-huh.
And so I was like, I think this is going to be an interesting thing to unpack because it's like he wasn't feeling that great. He was a little under the weather. He was kind of dreading getting up and going to this class. It's getting towards the end of the semester. It was like Monday through Thursday class, 8 to 12. It was like a part-time job kind of
Oh,
class. It was awful. And
that does
so
sound awful.
yeah, it's awful. And so it's like towards the end, he was a little sick. He was feeling a little yuck. And, we started talking about like, when, he was like, yeah. And then I get up and I write on Instagram. And so I still have that in me. Like, why am I making that choice? It was an interesting,
Ooh.
yeah, like it was, and that's, and maybe this will even segue into, I want to hear your thoughts on that, but I
Yeah.
loved how you talked about motivation and intrinsic motivation
Yeah.
and,
Yeah.
and like that was so interesting and I wanted to learn more about
Yes.
that. Yeah.
Yes. Okay. Well, before I forget where my brain wants to go, and I talk about this in my book in the chapter about like, potentially problematic relationships with
Mm-hmm.
video games, because that's a thing that a lot of people are like, my kid is addicted. And what you were just bringing up, sometimes it's actually my kid is very motivated, and those are not always the same thing. But one of the things that I was reading about when I was doing research for the sort of problematic relationship chapter was thinking about, okay, like if your son were here, I would ask, when he's like engaging with TikTok, with Instagram, etc., like what is it doing for him? Like what is the need that it is filling. And I mean like the psychological need.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes, depending on like what the media is that someone wants to engage with, sometimes it might be like, I am a young kid and I spend all day being told what to do and where to go and stand here and put your name on this and don't do that and stop touching them. And I get home and all I want to do is feel in control, right? So that kid is going to want to feel like they're in control, they're calling the shots, and nobody's going to tell them they're doing something wrong. And yeah, they're probably going to want to play Minecraft, right? Because that's an environment where they can feel that. But that doesn't mean that that kid is like addicted to Minecraft. It could mean that that kid is seeking autonomy. And if I'm able
Mm.
to view it that way, that is completely different, right? If I look at my kid and go, oh, they really, they just need a chance to like decompress and not get like corrected and feel in control. I can
Well,
help them. Go
I
ahead.
want to say, because I think that's it's so good and it's so true. And it's also like I was talking, my 27-year-old, I have my oldest son is 27 years old. And I was talking, and he's the video game. He loves video games. My husband also loves video games. Um, and we won't even talk about how old he is, but I love that he kind of loves video games because I think it's
Mhm.
really cute. And I think that, I mean, he just gets so much joy out of playing
Yeah.
his little video games. So anyway, my son also loves to play video games, and I was asking him recently, what do you love so much about it? And and he said, I'm really good at it.
Yeah.
And
See?
that was it. It was like he was never the kid that was the best at blah 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 sport, or but there's this video game and he plays with all of his friends, and it's his
Hmm.
chance, and they all live in different cities. It's
Right.
like friends from college and friends from high school, and they live in lots of different places, and he loves getting together with his friends, and he's really good at it. And I thought that
Yeah.
was so interesting. Anyway, sorry to
Yeah.
interrupt.
No, no, I'm so glad you brought that up because yeah, that comes up a lot when I'm talking about motivation is, if we actually ask people like, why do you enjoy the games that you enjoy? There are games that are designed in a more extrinsically motivated way, which is more like gambling. It's sort of like log in every day and get a prize and maybe it'll be great, right? That's different and that is a predatory kind of design. But when it's things that are more commercial, games you're paying up front for, you know, if I were to like pay $60 for a Zelda game and then it was constantly like incentivizing me to come back and play more, I would not buy that game, right? Like that wouldn't work. And I would feel kind of infantilized, right? So a lot of the reasons that people like these things are what is exactly what you're talking about. They make us feel in control. They make us feel connected to other people and they make us feel skilled. And that is what's in psychology called self-determination theory, and that's what supports intrinsic motivation. And that supports intrinsic motivation whether we're talking about playing FIFA soccer or regular soccer or baking or embroidery, right? Like you have to enjoy the thing you're doing and it's going to satisfy something for you. And if I notice that my child is really enjoying something with technology and it's satisfying one or more of those needs, that's that's information that can really inform me about my child. And it can also really inform me about like what other things might they enjoy. If I have a
Mm.
kid who really likes playing something open-ended and free form like Minecraft or something strategic like they're playing along with friends, well, I can find other things in their life that might give them that same feeling. Not because I'm trying to replace it, but because what we don't want is we don't want a kid to go, oh, if I want to feel in control, I should play Minecraft. That is the only way I feel in control. If that's the only way they can feel it, then yes, they're going to return to it. We don't want a kid who thinks I'm only good at video games, right? But it's okay if that's one part of their lives. But when
Mhm.
we're able to notice, oh, they're really good at being strategic, they're really good at being creative, we can help them find other ways of exploring that. And then what they're learning is like, oh, I thought I was only good at Minecraft. I'm actually really good at being creative. And then they're seeing that they can kind of scratch that itch in more than one way, which is a good like transfer of the skill outside of games. I have like a kind of weird relationship with exercise, or I did, and I didn't really like, I think a lot of millennials, I had sort of this transactional relationship with it. And I had like
Me too.
kind of,
Me too.
okay, yeah, I'd kind of started hiking a little bit on trails near my house before my child was born. And then when my child was like 3 months old is when the initial, like, first Nintendo Switch came into our household. And I was just doing a lot of like sitting around, sitting in naps and just being still a lot. And I started playing, at the time, the new Zelda game was Breath of the Wild. And you're doing a lot of just like exploring a map and running around and going up mountains. And I just really enjoyed that aspect of it, of like, I'm going to go up here. Oh, I'm going to find this lake. I'm just going to explore this environment. And then when the summer came around, I realized that, oh, maybe I can like explore that similar feeling in the real world and kind of use the hiking habit I'd kind of started and this interest. Maybe I can kind of combine them together. And I live in Colorado. So I started doing like summit hiking, like climbing to the top of something. And the first time I did that, I was like on my way up and kind of crested this like ridge and looked over the ridge, and below me was a alpine lake, which is, pretty common in the topography of mountains, but was not something I had like organically discovered before, but I had in that Zelda game. And so my first thought was like, oh my God, it's like just like in that game. It really is like this, right? Like this is really what this looks like. And if it hadn't been for that, I wouldn't have felt as much of a reason to do it. It's like it kind of gave me an idea of what to expect. And do they feel exactly the same? No, right? No, they don't. It's not like when I, run up the mountain in Zelda, I'm thinking of that as the same kind of accomplishment. But, sometimes I can devote most of a day to waking up at 5 a.m. and getting in my car and driving an hour and hiking for 3 hours and more and coming home, right? And other times I can't. But both of those things are giving me a sense of autonomy. I'm in control. I'm the one deciding to do this. And they're giving me a feeling of self-reliance to a degree. And they're also giving me a feeling of achievement. I saw a thing and I did the thing, and I feel different or better because of it. And if I were to view the video game as like as a less good version, all that's going to do, especially as if I'm a kid, is kind of make me resentful, right? Of like, I'm not saying they're exactly the same. I'm just saying I enjoy them both, right? And as the adult, if I know that my kid enjoys a digital version of something, if that can help them enjoy the real life version, great. And they can coexist with each other, right? They supplement each other. They don't need to substitute.
Well, it's like a book and a movie.
Yes.
You can, I mean, just because we've read the book doesn't mean we're not going to go see the movie. Chances are we're going to go see the movie, and it's so exciting to see the characters that you've envisioned and read about, what they look like on screen, right?
Right.
To me, it always feels exciting when a book that you've loved is made into a movie. So it's almost like it just intensifies the experience, the story. And sometimes a lot of times the movie, it doesn't do justice to the book, right?
Right. Right.
And so you might like I loved that you were like, yeah, exercise, we have this challenging relationship, but then you're like experiencing this through the video game. And then when you went and had a 3D real life experience, you're like, well, this is freaking cool.
Right.
Like it was cool in the video game, and this is super cool when you're
Mhm.
experiencing it in real life. And so, yeah, I liked that you like they can coexist together. I
Right.
love this. I've never thought
Right.
about it like that. I think it's, yeah, and I've been so guilty of being like, get off the screen, go outside.
Yeah.
Like when Corey said, I was just rotting on Instagram. Well, where do you think he got that language? I mean, frankly, I like to,
Well, that, I mean, rot, like that is, I feel like that's a Gen Z term of like rot, like
Oh,
doing
I
some
use that.
like
But
brain
I
rot.
mean, we're rotters. We are proud rotters in our house. Like we do
Ah,
love to be, like we love to lounge lizard together. We love to
sure.
watch. I mean, I'm a big watch movies in bed kind of person. Like
Yeah.
that's one of my pleasures and joys, and I love to like hole up with them. So, but yeah, I've definitely taken a moral high ground. And so I love that you pointed it out because sometimes it's like things are in your blind spot. You can't even see it until somebody points it out and then you can't unsee it. And so I just like it's accurate in my life.
Yeah. When you were talking about with your son and him talking about like, oh, I didn't feel well and I was like rotting on Instagram before I had to go to this class I was dreading. It reminded me, well, of a couple of things. One of which actually was also related to Zelda. Back to the modeling. There was a day where I was like sad. I was like in a funk, and I was around my kiddo, and I said like, I feel sad. I cannot kick this feeling. I'm gonna play some Zelda. Like I just maybe it'll help. And
Mm-hmm.
I played for like, a chunk of time, 20, 30 minutes. And I paused it and said, while I'm playing it, it feels good. And but I can also tell that like as soon as I stop, I'm just going to feel sad again. So that means that this was distracting me. And in this case, I don't really want to be distracted. I want to actually like work through this feeling because otherwise I'm going to have to play Zelda all day and I can't do that. So this didn't help. I don't really want to stop, but I think I need to try something else. So I'm going to pause and I'm going to go for a walk. And I don't really want to go for a walk, but I need to do something else to try to address this feeling. So it was like just modeling like the emotional regulation and also naming that, sometimes if I am at work and I get terrible news, I might need a temporary distraction to get through the rest of my day and be functional. And so maybe I am going to, pull up TikTok to try to kind of get my brain back online, even if for a few minutes. Or I'm going to go, if I can't sleep one night, it wouldn't do me any good if I was like, well, I can't get an extra latte today because that's a short-term solution. It's like, well, yeah, but also it's like, right, it sounds silly then, right? But I think it's knowing that there are different purposes for these things.
Mm-hmm.
There's a fitness influencer that I stole a trick from, which I used today actually with my lunch, where he talks about pairing what you want with what you need. And in his case, he was trying to like eat a certain amount of protein, so he was crumbling double stuffed Oreos into plain Greek yogurt. He was pairing his wants and his needs. And
Mm-hmm.
so I think about something like that where it's like, okay, if I were not feeling well and I woke up and I knew I have a 4-hour class to go to, yeah, nothing about that is motivating.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like
Mm-hmm.
that sounds awful.
Mm-hmm.
And what if on my walk across campus, what if I scrolled TikTok on my way across campus?
Mm.
Because I think we can go to an unintentional place of scarcity mindset with
Mhm,
technology
mhm,
of like, I don't want to be preoccupied. I don't want my kid to get obsessed. So I'm going to limit it as much as I possibly can. But we know, especially from like food, as many of us were raised in like the 80s and 90s, when we moralize food, when we put food up on a pedestal, when we do that with anything, it can have the opposite effect. It can make us preoccupied with that thing. And then the message we get from that is, as I was hearing some of what your son was saying, was like, I'm the problem, right?
mhm,
Like, I don't know what's wrong with me. I don't know why I keep wanting this. Well, it could be many things. It could be because it's hard to get out of bed when you don't feel good, and it's hard to go to a
mhm,
non-preferred task. And also, it's hard when you try to put something off limits that you enjoy.
mhm,
So, obviously, if someone's trying to like completely remove something from their life, they can choose to do that, right? There are times that's appropriate. And sometimes maybe it's, I want to find a way for this to fit in my life.
mhm,
So there's definitely times where I am like, okay, I need like 5 minutes to scroll my phone because it's been a day and I need it.
mhm,
But I know if I like sit on the couch it'll become 25 minutes. So
Mhm.
like the other day, my spouse walked into our closet and I was literally lying on the floor.
Mhm. Mhm.
And my spouse was like, "Are you okay?" And I was like, "I'm fine. I'm lying on the floor because I know that I can't lie here for 25 minutes, right? Like I'll lie
Mhm.
here for 5 minutes and then I'll move because this is not, I can't lie here for that long." So
So
I put
good. Yeah.
myself in a position where I was like, I can only do this for 5 minutes. Or
Mhm.
yes, I'll scroll my phone as I walk to this class because then I get to class and I have to put the phone away. And there's like a built
Mhm.
in thing that's going to limit it.
That the way you were talking about all of this, what just came to me, and I hope I can articulate it, is it's such a richer conversation than about giving your kid the right thing with the right, look,
Yeah.
parental restrictions and all that stuff. I think is necessary. I think it's great. I think it's I wish, like I was saying at the beginning, Silicon Valley would, the government would start to put some controls on Silicon Valley and make our lives easier. I do think all that stuff is necessary, but it's deeper. This is really about understanding human behavior rather than judging, right? Judging human
Yes.
behavior. Let's work with ourselves. Let's have a deeper conversation about habits and needs and why we do a thing. This feels like I love that you have some, I mean, you're teaching parents, like you gave a lot of resources towards the end of the book. It's funny, we have a framework called the same thing, which,
Yes.
like, I'm sorry that I was like, what are the odds of that?
That's
Um,
really funny.
and my hunch is that you named it that kind of tongue in cheek, like I named it that, just like
Yeah.
parents are always telling their kids to be nice, but it's like, and then they're like, how nice are you being?
Yeah,
Like,
sure.
um, but I think that, um, yeah, like let's figure out, we're always just trying to get a need met. And I love
Hmm.
how you provided resources towards the end because it really was about conversations and boundaries and how to have those conversations and some examples of what a conversation might look like and real stories from your own life. Like I loved the story of you driving through this sort of, sketchy drive. And
Yeah.
I could imagine myself, it's like one of those white knuckle grip drives, like through the
Yeah.
mountains and bad weather, and your kids on the iPad. You're like, okay, I'm going to plug them in on the iPad, I'm going to be white knuckling it, and then next thing you know, your kids like needing your assistance.
Right. Right. And I can't get mad at them for that because like of course like I hadn't done it, like I hadn't thought about how to set us up for success beforehand. Right. And but I think a lot of caregivers feel like, well, I'll utilize it if I really, really, really have to, like as a sort of third rail. And then if it doesn't like immediately kind of make everything infinitely easier, then I think we're sort of like a little like grumpy, like,
Mm-hmm.
what do you mean? You should be grateful I'm letting you do this. This was
Right.
supposed to be the magic bullet. What do you mean? It has its own set of problems, right? But yeah, when you brought that up, I was thinking, oh yeah, like the drives to the mountains. Because even now, like we're probably going to go to the mountains pretty soon. It's winter, and I literally will like time when my kid can have some screen time when we start driving up this like particular mountain pass because I'm like I need to be fully focused on keeping us safe. Like
Right.
right now, my
Right.
focus is going on the car and the road and all of us staying safe. And so that's my need. And what I really like about thinking about like the need is that the need includes you, like the need
Mm-hmm.
includes the adult. And that
Mm-hmm.
doesn't mean my need is superseding, right? But it is including me. Because if I think about only the need of one person, like I think when we think about kids and screen time, we're often thinking about, oh, well, they need to have as little as possible. It's like, right. But if you cannot get your needs met because we live in systemic inequity, right? Back to what we were saying at the beginning. If utilizing a screen for a set amount of time with content that works for your child is going to make you a better caregiver who can then put their own device down and be more present, that is a benefit to your kid. and it's a
Right.
benefit to you, and it's way more sustainable than trying to abstain for as long as possible and then giving in and then feeling like it didn't work and kind of this like, fits and starts, and then you just feel guilty about it, right? Like that's not
Mhm.
helpful to anybody.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah, I know. I mean, I think that um like when you talk, I was like, that's exactly what I used it for. I remember um I always let my kids watch, especially when they were little and I like was making dinner. It was the end of the day. We'd had a whole day.
Yeah.
I'm tired.
Yeah.
I kind of kicked myself later because, I was like, I should have included them more because then maybe they would have learned how to cook and I would have had some helpers, but whatever, I was too tired. And that was, I mean, I remember when my son Alec was in preschool, tiny, and I would put him, I played this like back then it was like VHS tapes.
Right. Oh yeah.
I had like a VHS Sesame Street tape, and I played it like every night. I don't even know, maybe a year. And it was like, I knew exactly how long that tape was. I knew
Yeah.
exactly how long I had. I could
Yeah.
leisurely make dinner. I could do, I had that time for me and I
Yes.
needed it. I mean,
Yes.
I needed it, you know?
Right. And that's not like a moral failure. Like,
Mhm.
yeah, you needed it. And in some households, maybe that's not the pain point, right? Maybe there's two caregivers around during dinner time or what have you. And the pain point is somewhere else. The pain point is when you're trying to put a sibling down or feed a baby or whatever. But that's why I think it's so important at the end of the book, with that framework, is to think about what is the need, because a need is going to change. So we don't need to think like, oh, we have to pick one set of rules for screen time that have to just like be the same forever and has to work forever, because your family is going to change. Things are going to change. It might be like for a season, for years. Like we're at a point where you mentioned with, kids are getting old enough to help with dinner or do something else during dinner. We're kind of reaching that point. And if we wanted to, we could say, hey, why don't we have screen time after dinner? And then we could all be involved if we want to. And if that works for us, great. But in the meantime, if we keep having screen time before dinner, so one of us can be fully focused on making a meal, well, if then we're all sitting down and we're all present and we're eating a more nutritionally dense meal that wouldn't have been possible if we have a kid running around underfoot because we're trying not to use a screen, we're all better off because of that.
Mhm.
And we're on like, then the adults are better regulated. We've had time to decompress. Like that is a benefit. And frankly, that also, like, if that's sustainable, right? Like if my kid takes from that they got some TV time or some video game time while parents made dinner, like I'm fine with that being a thing that they associate, um, because it fits into the rest of our lives, right? And
Mhm.
it's something that they can rely on, and also, as you said, it's something that the adult can rely on and know that this is predictable, so it doesn't feel like it's a huge big deal. It's not being elevated and put on a platter. It's just part of our lives, like other parts of our lives.
Mhm. No, I love that, and I love the way you teach, and y'all are gonna have to read the book because the way you really lay out, I mean, I talk about helping kids to develop agency and taking scarcity out of it. I mean, I teach this a lot of times with homework when it comes to homework or,
Totally.
or how do you get your kids to read? I
Mm.
mean, you're an educator, so I'll tell you, I completely badmouth reading logs. Um,
Oh,
I think they are
I'm probably with you on that one.
yeah, I think they
Yeah.
sabotage. I think they make
Yeah.
this joy, this pleasure of reading into a chore. And it's like, it
Yes.
does, yes.
It's once again, it's that extrinsic motivation thing.
Mm-hmm.
There's so much extrinsic motivation in education, and
Mm-hmm.
it's like this is not going to make someone want to do the thing.
It does the
Yeah,
opposite. It does
no,
the
it does
opposite.
the
I mean,
opposite.
it does the opposite. So, so I really talk a lot about helping kids to develop agency. And I loved the way you laid it out. It was just so real life about homework and screen time and predictability and sort of making it more neutral, just like you would with food. Like I provide the food and then it's your job to eat it or not to eat it. But the
Right.
minute we start, we are more invested
Yeah.
than our child is it becomes a power struggle and it gets
Yes.
all wonky, you know? So I
Yes.
love how you taught that in the book.
Yes. Well, thank you. And yeah, it's funny because there is one activity in my child's life that I really do have to like say, like, no, we cannot do that right now. Like, I do have to kind of police it, and it's reading.
Mm.
And most people would hear that and go like, oh, well, lucky you, right? Feel this sort of like envy.
No, my daughter
And
was like that too. Same. Yeah.
but if but again, that's like the moral hierarchy, right? Where it's like, but the point there is that most people have an activity that is preferable to other things.
Hmm.
And so if one kid it's an iPad and my kid it's a book, my kid isn't better because they're trying to read constantly than the kid who wants to, be on the iPad constantly. My kid isn't like morally superior with their interest, but it's the same investigation of like, why is it my kid wants to read constantly? Why is it my kid wants to read at the dinner table? Is it because they don't want to engage in conversation? Is it
Hmm.
because they don't know how? Is it
Hmm.
because it's uh, easier for them to distract while they eat? I
Hmm.
mean, that's all really helpful information, right? That tells me the skill we need to work on. That tells me like
So
where
interesting.
else we can kind of build that in. And that's why I think the moral neutrality is so important, because if that kid were on an iPad, I think many people, and definitely part of me, would blame the iPad, right? Like,
Hmm.
it's the iPad's fault. Of course, they're just not paying any attention. But if it's a book, we'd be like, isn't that so cute? They just love their book so much. And it's
Hmm.
like, well, if both of those are distracting from listening to your body and telling if you're full and listening to other people talk, one of those is not better than the other,
That's
right?
right. No,
Right?
it's such a good point. And I mean, my daughter will joke. She's like, yeah, I love when my kids use the term punish because I never ever said you're punished. Like that just wasn't even in our vocabulary. They're like, yeah. Avery's like, I always joke, yeah, my mom used to punish me by taking away my books. I'm like,
Yeah.
I didn't punish you, and that's just not even true. She's like, oh, I remember. And but it's like people like, oh, she reads too much, but I knew it was a form of distraction. I knew it was a way
Yes.
that she was checking out. I knew that she was avoiding something else. You know, when she went into her room after a long day of school, and it wasn't just like an hour to decompress, it was like, 3 hours later I found her in her bed still
Mm-hmm.
reading. I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
this is the extreme. There's something to deal with. So I'm with you
Right.
on that. I love it. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's another thing I was going to say, but I can't remember what it was.
Yeah, no, I mean, and I also think you're you're so attuned to the topic, and I mean, I love people who are professionals who actually walk their
Ah.
talk.
Mm-hmm.
And I can tell
Yes.
that this is like the fact that you even are like, okay, why is he read or what, why is my child reading at the table? And
Right.
what are they avoiding? What could be the reasons? Like my my oldest son, he went through a period where he was having a hard time socializing and having an appetite. um,
Mm.
right, and so because socializing and making conversation can sometimes take so much of his bandwidth that
Mm-hmm.
like after a long, like, because like when they got to college and they go out in groups and they're going out at like 8 and 9 o'clock to eat, and then they're going out too, he was like, a lot of times I'll eat before I go out because it just is a lot for me to be able, like, I just lose my appetite,
Mm-hmm.
and so and he was one of those people that was constantly like trying to keep weight on himself. I know it's like hard to relate to that, but he didn't want to skip a meal. He didn't want to skip dinner. And he was like, so I just
Mm-hmm.
eat before I go out with friends because that way I know I will have already eaten. The pressure's off. If I just feel like socializing and not eating, it's not a big deal.
Right.
Um, so I would never have known that. I'm not wired in that way, but this is so interesting to think of a little kid. I mean, I'm sure there's a lot of people listening. And if you have a kid that wants to be on a screen or wants to be reading a book while they're eating dinner, it could be some kind of coping mechanism
Yeah.
for this. It takes a lot for me to sit and to like socialize at the end of a long day, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. And again, like, your child discovering that and figuring that out, and then figuring out ways to accommodate that, right? It's not like he's saying, I'm not going to see friends, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like he's not limiting himself. He's finding ways to accommodate. And
Mm-hmm.
that is sustainable, right?
Mm-hmm.
So how, if it's pointing towards something that maybe we want to get curious about, if it leads to a way of figuring out how to manage that thing or accommodate that thing or adjust, then that's a skill that our kids can take with them. And it's funny, I joke a lot, well, not even joke, I say a lot that especially for neurodivergent kids, a lot of them thrive in video game environments, and video game environments are highly, highly, highly accommodated environments.
Mm.
If you think about, like, if I forget, like, oh, how do I jump, I can hit pause. I can go to a menu. It will show me. It will remind me of my available information. I can't remember where I'm supposed to be going. I know exactly where the map is. It will tell me where I'm going. I can get a reminder of objectives. I can review my information. If I'm trying to do something really big, often it will like chunk it down into smaller tasks. Like, you're trying to free the princess. First, you have to go to this world, right?
Mm.
And if we think about like educational environments, that's a lot of the common accommodations that we often seek for neurodivergent children, is things like chunking, breaking down big tasks, checklists, frequent check-ins, like reminders of like information, like notes, provided notes. And in video games, those things are just built in. They're like a
Mm.
universal accommodation that's just built into good game design, right? But in a lot of the rest of the world, those things are harder to get, not because they're not valuable, but because they're just not as baked in. And so if we see our kid, my kid can never remember where their socks are, but they remember the name of every Pokemon or
Mm-hmm.
whatever. Again, when we're neutral, we can look at that and go, okay, what is it about this that is helping them thrive in this environment? And we can even ask them, like, hey, if you don't know what to do, what do you do? How do you get information in this game? I can't remember what to do. What should I do? And if they know or they tell us, we can ask, like, is that helpful? Do you like finding information that way? And that might tell us something that we could bring into the rest of their lives.
Mm.
Like,
So
and
good.
then again, we're kind of neutralizing it and showing them, hey, this thing that helps you in video games can help you in the rest of your life.
Mm.
That doesn't mean I'm saying video games are better. It's saying I can learn how to accommodate to help my life, like your son was doing.
Mm. Useful. It's such a useful. It's like learning through metaphor, right? And so,
Mm,
how is this like that? And if we take the judgment out of it, and there's just useful information here, and
mm-hmm,
if you bring that neutrality in, and I think it can be so hard for so many of us to utilize all this valuable information and ways to help our kids to develop skills outside of the video game in real life, if we can stop making so many moral judgments about the video games. There's all this useful information. I also think it's interesting that here you are the what are you known as,
the
the
gamer
the
educator.
yeah, the
Yeah.
gamer educator. Okay, here you are, and you're writing this book that's so rooted in realism, and yet you have a kid that wants to read too much. Actual
Right.
physical books, not even on
Right.
a Kindle.
Well, it depends. They read a lot of like digital graphic novels on an
Uh-huh.
iPad because they don't look good on an e-reader, and I get it. I wouldn't want to read a graphic novel on an e-reader either.
Yeah, yeah.
Like,
Yeah. No, I was envisioning your kid with like an old school book, and I'm like, oh, so
I
the
mean,
kid with the
sometimes.
green light is over here reading over reading.
Right.
I think that's pretty ironic. Well, this has been a fantastic conversation. Thank you so
Yes.
much
Thank you so
for
much.
being here and for the work that you do. It's so important and helpful for all of us.
Thank you so much for having me. It was such a wonderful conversation.
Loved it. Okay. Thanks everyone for listening. Have a great week. Bye for now. Thanks for listening today, guys. I hope you picked up some tips, tools, maybe some baby steps for creating more balance and boundaries in your life. And I just wanted to let you know, if you want to continue moving the needle forward in creating this for yourself, having a happier household, I want you to go to my website and check out mastermindparenting.com. We have 3 beginning programs, and if you need some accountability and more support, then please look for the one that would be a good fit for you. And as always, we're on all the social channels under Mastermind Parenting. On Instagram, it's mastermind_parenting. And, periodically I do pop up on different Instagram lives, Facebook lives, where I give you teaching and coaching, and I love engaging with you live to help you help your strong-willed kids so that they can feel better, because when they feel better, they do better. And I love, love, love getting to know you guys. So thanks for listening. If you like this podcast, please don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review. Super, super appreciative.